Viewer discretion advised.
As I cross-reference Weiner's book, Africa and the Discovery of America, he explains that Columbus noted in his journal that the American Indians confirmed black-skinned people had come from the southeast in boats, trading in gold-tipped spears. It was found also that the racial properties of gold, copper, and silver alloy were identical to the spears being forged in Africa, Guinea. Enormous Olmec head statues with African facial characteristics found throughout Central and South America support that Africans had settled in America long before its apparent discovery, ranging up to 11.15 feet in height and weighing 30 to 40 tons. These statues generally depict helmeted black men with large eyes, broad fleshy noses, and full lips. The first heads were discovered by explorer Jose Meg in 1862. Megar wrote that what astonished me with the Ethiopic which it represents, I reflected that there had undoubtedly been blacks in this country. Africans began coming to the Americas thousands of years before Columbus, and the evidence of their presence through systematically ignored by mainstream and K-12 education curriculum is overwhelming and undeniable. Even early Mexican scholars were convinced that the impact of the black explorers of the New World was profound and enduring. One author, J.A. Villacorta, has written, "Any way you view it, Mexican civilization had its origin in Africa. The black began his career in America not as a slave but as a master. It's about time that America realizes that fact also." So the original landlords and owners of America, which we call Tamari or Tamaricans, is the copper-colored, dark-skinned Aboriginal Indian, the so-called Negro, the so-called black man, the so-called African American, the so-called colored, the so-called Negro. In reality, they're not really Negroes to begin with. They're actually the landlords and the owners of America. They're the Aboriginal Indigenous Indians to America. It's no secret that America is a melting pot of cultures. Yet while some people of European, African, and Native descent can claim a single racial or ethnic identity, others have intersectional identities, such as the case with the Aboriginal American Indian, copper-colored, aka Negro, African American, or the black man and black woman, because their lineage traces back to America. They are indigenous to America. These Aboriginal Indigenous Indians' genetic heritage distinguishes them from other Native Americans and European Native Americans in the communities. Let's explore the history and genetics of the Aboriginal Indigenous Indian to better understand this diverse yet underrepresented community. The concept of using so-called blood quantum or amount of tribal affiliation in a person's ancestry to determine tribal enrollment eligibility has no basis in Aboriginal American traditions. Blood quantum emerged as a way to measure Indianness. Through a construct of race, it became the primary ways to cap the number of people who couldn't enroll into a tribe. Today, some tribes still use blood quantum as criteria for tribal enrollment, though each federally recognized tribe has its own set of criteria for tribal enrollment. For the first time established a legal definition of a white person as one who has no trace whatsoever of any blood other than Caucasian. The purpose of the law was to prohibit intermarriage between whites and non-whites and to protect the whiteness of the race. Where did the Native Americans originally come from? The ancestors of the Native Americans were nomadic hunters of Southeast Asia who migrated over the Bering Strait land bridge into North America probably during the last glacial period, 11,500 years ago to 30,000 years ago. An act of Congress approved March 3, 1893 established a commission to negotiate agreements with the Choctaw, Creek, Chickasaw, Seminole, and Cherokee Indian tribes. The commission became known as the Dawes Commission after its chairman, Senator Henry Dawes of Massachusetts. The Dawes Commission required that individuals claim membership in only one tribe, although many people had more than one line of ancestry. The Commission of the Five Civilized Tribes was appointed by President Grover Cleveland in 1893 to negotiate land with the Cherokee, Creek, Choctaw, Chickasaw, and Seminole tribes. It is called the Dawes Commission after its chairman, Henry L. Dawes, but the final roles of the citizens and freedmen of the Five Civilized Tribes in Indian Territory. Tribe members were entitled to an allotment of land in return for abolishing their tribal governments and recognizing federal laws. In order to receive the land, individual tribal members first had to apply and be deemed eligible by the Commission. The first application process for enrollment began in 1896 but was declared invalid, so the Dawes Commission started all over again in 1899. People had to reapply in order to be considered even if they had already applied in 1896. The Commission accepted applications from 1898 to 1907, with a few additional people accepted by an act of Congress in 1914. The resulting list of those who were accepted as eligible became known as the Dawes Rolls. $5 Indian Treaty. The agreement led to the forced removal of Cherokees from their southeastern homelands to Indian Territory west of the Mississippi River. The Treaty of New Escoda gave the Cherokee $5 million and land in present-day Oklahoma in exchange for the 7 million acres of ancestral land. It may be fashionable to play Indian now, but it was also trendy 125 years ago when people paid $5 apiece for falsified documents declaring them natives on the Dawes Rolls. These so-called $5 Indians were genetically European. The past 150 years, the five civilized tribes have been ran by European Siberian Indian chiefs. The copper-colored people, according to the American Dictionary of English, also referred to as Webster's Dictionary, 1828, the Native American, also called Indians, were as described. American, a native of America, originally applied to the Aboriginals or copper-colored races found here by the Europeans, but now applied to the descendants of Europeans born in America. The latter part of the definition is telling, however. We're discussing the copper-colored people of dark skin who were here before the Europeans in America. The freedmen's estimates may be sound, and many historians agree that at least 50% of all the people on the Cherokee Trail of Tears were of dark-skinned, copper-colored, or Negroid features. The U.S. Congress and President Andrew Jackson promoted the Indian Removal Act of 1830, which allocated $500,000 to purchase Indian land in the southeast and remove the inhabitants west of the Mississippi to what would be known as Indian Territory. What Indian tribes were removed? After the passage of the Indian Removal Act in 1830, approximately 60,000 members of the Cherokee, Muskogee Creek, Seminole, Chickasaw, and Choctaw nations, including thousands of copper-colored Aboriginal Indigenous Indians who are getting kicked off the reservation and disenrolled from the tribe. Cherokee Nation recently decided to limit its membership to people who can prove they have Indian blood. This strips of their citizenship rights about 28 copper-colored, dark-skinned Indians who are descendants of the American Indian who own land in America. Those rights include access to health care clinics, food distribution for the poor, and assistance for low-income homeowners. The move prompted protests among the American Indians, copper-colored races, who are known today as the freedmen, because for long periods in the past they enjoyed equal rights in the Cherokee tribe, but in more recent history their citizenship rights have been repeatedly challenged. Cherokee are at odds with the federal government. The Department of Housing and Urban Development has also sustained a $30 million budget in funding for the Cherokee Nation. The Justice Department said last week the key election for tribal chief later this month won't be recognized by the Department of Interior, which has oversight over Indian affairs. Racism defines prejudice, discrimination, or antagonism by the individual, community, or institution against a person or people on the basis of their membership in a particular racial or ethnic group, typically one that is a minority or marginalized. The belief that different races possess distinct characteristics, abilities, or qualities, especially so as to distinguish them as inferior or superior to one another, is a prime example of racism. And there's lots of marginalized systemic racism within the tribe of today towards Aboriginal Indigenous Indians with dark skin, who are by definition copper-colored, but today on the census they have changed their identity from Indian to Negro, from Negro to colored, to African, to African American, and to Black.
Well, we was already here in America's proof. A lot of people say that we all African. Don't make a mistake about that. Only way you're gonna find out everybody's Black ain't no African, everybody's Black ain't no Native American neither. Only way you're gonna find out, you go back and find out you look into your own family. This is what they don't tell you. You got to look into your own family and see who your family member is.